Hey guys, we're back out in the garage today, and today we have a new project which I picked up yesterday for 75 bucks, and it is a Kawasaki Suitcase style generator from the 1980s. The model number is GA1400A, and apparently this generator does not run. The guy I bought it off of had it for years, if not decades, and had been sitting in his garage for like 15 years or more, and he couldn't start it. So we picked her up, and we're going to see if we can get her going today. So that's what we're going to go through. We're going to go through the whole thing and see, see if we can get her to run. So hey, let's get after it. Okay, guys, let's take a look at this this thing. This thing is, barn fresh. Like I said, just picked it up yesterday. For 75 bucks, and we're just gonna, typically the first thing I do when I try to work on something is just, obviously just give it a few pulls, see what the compression's like, and you can see it's got good compression for a little engine, so that's a good initial sign anyways. When we look at the front of this thing, when we're taking a look at her, we've got, it says engine SW. Don't know what that means. Almost looks like there might be a cover missing on this, and it does compress a little bit, so I wonder if that's a switch as well. Don't know. It says oil alarm lamp, and there's a little red lamp in there, so that's good. So I mean, it's got maybe not oil shut off, but at least it looks like it's got some indicator if the oil gets low. It's got a DC, that looks like a DC lamp. This is a circuit breaker, and I don't know, this doesn't push much. Maybe it only pushes if it pops, so that might be okay. Obviously we've got our electrical outlets for our 110, and then we have DC 12 volts, which is actually pretty nice, and then a ground here, so that's good. Yeah, there's a cover here that's got a picture of a spark plug on it, so I'm guessing that's where the spark plug is. Yeah, cover with a spark plug on it. Yeah, good. I'll just tip this over so you guys can see, but yeah, there's our spark plug right in there. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. What else do we got going on here? Well, if we spin her this way, that's plastic and this is metal, and when you can see our exhaust here, so this is clearly our exhaust, and this is clearly, I would guess, the back end of the generator head, right? Back into that. So okay, so this is where here's our carburetor, that's our choke, so that would be choke on, that would be choke off. Okay, because yeah, and as we can see, we're missing an air cleaner cover here. That appears to be so far just about the only major component that I see missing here. Obviously we're going to have to do something about that at some point, but not a big deal to run it for a while without an air cleaner on it, so we're not going to worry too much about that. Everything else looks pretty decent. Spin it around this way. Obviously we got our recoil starter, and then as well we've got our gas tank here, and this thing says it is 3/4 full. Interestingly, this must have some sort of gauge on it. Oh, and look, it does too. Look at that, eh? Look, it's got a gauge on it, and you'll notice it says got a little fuel gauge there. And the way this works is it's got this little plunger here, this little float, and as you raise and lower the float, it changes from empty to full. Hang on, is that going the whole way? Oh, okay. It always shows half full, even at the bottom. Isn't that interesting? So that might be something we have to work on. But bottom line, it gives you an indication of fuel. That is interesting, isn't it? Look at that. It's all the way down, and it shows half full. Interesting. So who knows how much fuel is in this thing? It looks like, yeah, it looks like, I'm not going to tip it because I'll tip fuel out of it, but maybe I'll take the camera off and show you later. But we got an issue going on here. There's a basket in here, and it looks like it's a basket with a strainer in the bottom, and it looks like it is broken. So we're gonna have to look at that as well. So there's a couple of things, on here already, but not too bad. So The other thing that I'm kind of curious about, what's going on here? Yeah, it looks like this cover sort of opens up somehow. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, cool. Interesting. And look at that. We've got a that looks like a spark plug wrench sitting there. Oh, cool. Look at that. Comes with its own toolkit. So it's got a spark plug wrench. Okay, cool. Taking a spark plug out. That's kind of neat. Stick that back there for now. Don't think we really need that, but that would be good to have in the field if you're needing something. And then we've got our float bowl right down here. So maybe we'll tip that up so you can see it a bit better. So yeah, so here's our float bowl and the fuel shut off. I'm going to leave it shut off for the moment, and then we've got our oil. So the next thing to do before I do anything, I always just check to make sure there's oil, you know, in the machine. We're definitely not going to start by changing oil. I never change the oil unless the thing is fixed up and running. But we want to check to make sure there's actually oil in it, so that if ever the happy day goes that we start it, that it actually works. Oh yeah, there's a ton of oil in this thing. Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's almost too much. Maybe that's because I was tipping it around, eh? Could be. Let's give her another go here. So let's see what we got. Check her out. What do we got? Oh yeah, we've got, if anything, there's too much oil in that thing. It is like brimming, man. Brimming full. But the good news is that oil is pretty clean. I don't even really tell off my finger, but it's not black. It's actually almost a little bit translucent actually. Still, that's good oil, but I would say a little too much in it. Probably not in too much to do harm, but definitely plenty. Let's just have one more look at that. Yeah, she is right at the top, man. Okay. So oil is not a problem. Oil looks overly good. Obviously, you don't want to run an engine with way too much oil, but I think this one's just at the very, very top. So we're going to call it good for now. We're not going to, if we do get this thing running, we're not going to run it for more than a few minutes before we change the oil anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that at this point. That's just the way that's going to go. Okay, so I think the next step is actually go and check and make sure we have spark. Without spark, nothing's going to happen. So let's pull the cable, the wire off here, and we'll pull the spark plug. And I guess I could use that funky tool that they gave us, but I think instead I'll use my socket instead, and we'll just do her this way. Let's take a look and visually inspect the plug first. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at that plug. Plug looks really good, actually. Plug looks excellent. It is not overly dirty. It's not overly fouled. It's not. Yeah, looks good. Nothing wrong with that. So that's excellent. Let's throw that back in there. Now, normally I would probably just actually test the spark, you know, so you could visually see it off the spark plug. But this thing is down in a bit of a well. And I could probably still see it, but on video you're not going to see it. So we're going to do something a little bit different here. I've got a spark plug tester here. Okay, so we're just going to shove that onto the spark plug on this end, and onto the spark plug lead here. Okay, and let me move this over here. And with a little bit of luck, hopefully you guys can see that. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit here. See if we can get a little bit of a better shot on that. Okay, with a little bit of luck, if we have spark, that should light up. Let's see what we got. Yeah, so we have, as you can see, we've got awesome spark. So that is another great sign. So far, so good on this thing, eh? So, yeah, so that's really great. So let's throw that back. Get this little tool out of here. Just going to tighten that spark plug back up. A little bit. Just a little bit, okay? Okay, so the likelihood is we know we've got spark, right? The likelihood is, and we know we've got compression, so the likelihood is this is a fuel issue. So, we could try starting it a little bit. Sometimes that's a little bit of fun just to see if she'll pop. Should we do that? Let's just see if she'll pop. Let me grab a little bit of starting fluid and I'll bring you right back. Okay guys, so we're going to see if we can make this thing pop a little bit before we actually dig into the carburetor and the fuel system. So I've got a little bit of starting fluid here. I'm going to squirt a little bit into the throat of the carburetor back here, and then we're going to get a fair bit in there, and we're going to close the choke and give her a few pulls, and let's see if we get anything popping out of it. Hey, look at that, eh? Well, holy smokes, I didn't expect it to actually run. Unbelievable. That's incredible. I mean, that was way more than it would run just on starting fluid. I actually had to turn it off. I just experimented by pushing this button, and sure enough, she turns off. Well, that's not so hard at all, eh? Unreal. 75 bucks. I'm impressed. Okay, well, that's going to make this job a lot easier than I had thought it was going to be. There might be value in us going and taking a look at that carburetor anyways. We'll see. This thing is obviously very dirty, but wow, that's amazing. I'm impressed. You know what I think we're going to do, given it actually ran, I think the one thing I noticed for sure is not right here is this fuel basket. So let's take a look at that, and let's look inside the gas tank a little bit here first, because I want to make sure this is rectified, or at least we understand what's going on there first. So let's take a look at that. Okay, we've got the camera repositioned, so hopefully you can see the fuel cap here, which shows us, I think, about 2/3 of a container of fuel. I don't really trust that. Obviously, we've already checked, and we know that our fuel gauge isn't exactly accurate, but we want to see what's going on here. And so now you can kind of see what I was talking about before. There is a little plastic basket with mesh at the bottom, but this should be something you can actually pull out and lift out, in and out, and all this is broken. So I suspect a lot of that broken plastic is actually in the tank as well. But we need to get this thing out of here. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and a screwdriver. And we'll have to, hopefully we can get this out of here without breaking more of it, which is probably, just a dream, but this has got to come out. This has got to come out, so we'll just kind of try to be as gentle as we can with this, but now this basket isn't crucial, right? These are sort of nice to have things, so we may not need to replace this really. I mean, it's really just it's really just to kind of catch anything as you're pouring fuel into the machine. If there happens to be some debris or whatnot in the fuel container that you're using to pour gas into, this would catch it. So it's kind of a nice to have. A lot of machines have nothing like this, so I don't know if we'll worry about replacing it, but we do want to get it out of here. It's also, I noticed the gas cap wasn't fitting well as well, and I'm pretty sure it's because it was getting caught up on this thing. Oh, this thing is nasty, man. Come on out of there. Sorry, this is a little painful because I'm just trying to be careful so that I don't, that I don't make more of a mess than we really need to. Although patience may get the better of me and I may just start reefing on it. We'll see. Come on out of there, you turkey. Come on out. What's holding you up? I have a feeling, because it's really, this should just fall in there, and look at it, it's half out and it's still not coming. I wonder if this plastic is just, you know, has expanded or something. Why is that so tight? It should not be. Come on, man. Come on out of there. This thing should just fall in there. So, why is that doing that? I really don't know. There we go. Oh, crazy. Well, you can see what it was, right? So we've got the mesh on the sides and mesh on the bottom. And this would have normally just dropped in there, fell in there, and would just stick on this lip. So it would have had a lip on here all the way around, which obviously is broken off. Yeah, so this plastic has just gotten really old, and I don't know, but it would seem to me that was a ridiculously tight fit. I think with the gas, this plastic, for whatever reason, has just expanded as well a little bit, because it should not be. It should literally fall into this tank. And you saw how I had to reef on it to get it out. Very weird. But anyways, yeah, that is either a replacement part or we're just not going to worry about it. I think probably the latter. I think we're not going to worry about it. I'm just curious if the gas cap fits on there better now. Oh yeah, look at that. That gas cap fits on there properly now. Before you couldn't seal the darn gas tank. I actually had to be careful bringing this thing home because, you know, jostle a little bit and you'd have fuel pouring out of the top of it. So pretty sure that's going to be fine now. This, that's probably not the first thing we want to work on, but I'm kind of curious about why this thing shows always half full no matter what. I guess we'll look at that separately, but it does make one curious. We'll have to figure that out because when she's right down, she's at half full. Anyways, that's not the biggest problem today. Yeah, look at a flashlight and look in there. Let's see what we can see. And you know what? She looks pretty clean. There is a little bit of, you know, a few bits of debris in there, but not bad at all. I think that's fully workable. I don't see anything that's going to gum us up. And interestingly, gas doesn't even smell that bad. Yeah, but yeah, it's good. I think it's good enough to run anyways. We're going to check that out. So, interesting. Okay, on to the next thing. Okay guys, for whatever reason, this fuel gauge is bugging me. So I'm actually going to work on this first, although it's probably the least important thing. But it's bugging me. So this works again by, it's got a little float here, and by this float, when more gas you got in, the more it goes up, the more this, you can kind of see that, right? As you got more fuel, it changes position. But at the moment, our down position or our empty position is actually half full. So I've been looking at this, and the way this thing goes, it actually twirls this center deal here. That's what's actually twirling the needle. Okay, as this goes up, it twirls it, it spins it. So this thing is all, I have no idea how this ever changed, because this thing is all welded together. Spot welds here, spot welds here. What we need to do is move this position of this needle, or excuse me, this center shaft, by probably half a turn. So that's what we need to do. So I've been looking at it, and I think I can just very carefully bend it a little bit out of position and get it right. But you know, we very well, I might break it. I hope I don't. But that's what I'm going to try to do. So I'm going to film the chaos here so you can see what I'm up to. So what I want this to do, this thing does have some play in it. You'll notice that shaft has some play in it. So I want it right down as far as I can get it. And then I'm going to take a pliers and bend it a little bit to see if I can pop it out of this hole here. As you can see, it's barely in there. It's probably popping out of there at 30 seconds of an inch, right? So we bend it just a little bit. Maybe we can get it out of there and then twirl this. So maybe before I do that, I'm just going to try to figure out which way I need to turn it. Yeah, so I need to turn it counterclockwise a half turn. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can get this out of here. Again, I'm just bending it to one side a little bit. See if we can get this out. Probably a really bad idea, but we're going to give it a go. Okay, and we want this counterclockwise half a turn. So I should be able to get this right out of here now. So you can see what I've done. I've bent the heck out of it, right? So then we're going to just take this out. And this needs to turn. Actually, let's take it right out and look at it. Let's take it right out and see if we, when we move this manually now, let's get this to the empty position. See where empty is. I'm just going to move it manually here with a screwdriver. Okay, that's empty there. Okay, so empty is in that position there. So we are going to then see if we can get this into that position without moving it. We can get this back in. Okay. Without moving the bottom piece. So we can get this in there. Yeah, I'm just thinking about this. I wonder if I'd actually just twirled it, like spun the metal a little bit, because it's very soft metal, if that would have worked. Okay, I think, are we still on empty? No, we're not exactly. Well, what the heck? That is interesting. So that's still not exactly empty. So we actually need to twirl this. That's interesting. Which way would it be? Need this to be. Okay, there's empty. Okay, there is empty. Right. Well, hang on. I'm not showing you. There's empty. Okay, and there is the position of our, oh, can you see that right in there, of our center deal. So we need this to line up with that. But you'll notice that the float though is straight up and down. So that's what the problem is. There's some misalignment between the float. The float has got a, see that? Can you see that right there? Yeah, do you see the float? It is straight up and down for the shaft of this thing. And yet if we look at this when we're on empty, it is exactly, can you see that there? That's exactly pretty much, you know, what is that, 180 degrees wrong, right? Like it's exactly the wrong, or is it 90 degrees? Yeah, someone will correct me. Bottom line, it's, one's vertical, one's horizontal. Think of it that way. That's the problem. So that's going to continue to be a problem until we solve that. And I think the only way we solve that is by twirling our shaft. Is that how that works? I guess the problem's in here. Isn't that interesting? I wonder how that happened. Okay guys, I'm still looking at the fuel gauge here a little bit, and I've come to the realization that the key issue here is that this actuator here for our fuel empty or full is in one position, and our the float is actually, and this little slot is in exactly the opposite position. So what we need to do, and this whole mechanism is press fit. Probably what's happened is that the needle has actually spun on the shaft or something. I mean, it seems solid there now, but obviously there's some misalignment inside this unit. Now this whole thing is just press fit, and I'd say there's no way I can get in there. Pretty much no way without absolutely destroying it. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead, and again, this is probably the wrong thing to do, but what I'm going to do is I am going to cut a different shaft hole going the opposite direction here. So We're going to cut another shaft hole. I'm going to use a little Dremel, and we're going to try that and see. Now, this, you know, I have a feeling that there's a good chance I may just be ruining this, but we're going to give her a go and see what happens. So this thing has obviously been impregnated in gas for a long time, so hopefully we don't. In fact, I think we'll just, you know what I'm thinking? I think I'm going to go run this thing under the tap for a little while first. I'll be right back. Okay guys, so what we're going to do is, as I mentioned, we're going to cut a channel in this thing. I have rinsed this thing under water quite a bit, as well as you can see I've got a fire extinguisher there just in case. Safety first, right? I don't think it should be a problem, but you know what? We're just going to be careful. I've got some glasses on to protect the eyes, and we're going to give her a go. Yeah. Okay, I think we've cut ourselves a channel. I have to admit I probably have cut it a little bit too wide. I didn't intend to go right through on the one side, but you know what? It's solid in there, so I think we're going to be okay. I did on the second pass there open it up side to side a little bit to account for the thickness of this. So I think we're going to be okay. We're gonna give that a go and see what happens. So let's see how it works now. Okay, let's reassemble this thing. So first step is to get this back in there. It's only got the channels on each side. You might be saying, well, why didn't you just turn the float around? There's channels on each side, but not on the other side. We would have had to have channels here for the rails. So anyways, the way you do this, you just put it on one side first, and then, you know, open her up a little bit and stick it on there. Okay, great. Now it's in there correctly. And actually, you know what? If I was smart, hang on, we're going to take that off again. If I was smart, I betcha if I put this through first, that would be even easier. Let's do that. Got that through there. Let's do this. I'll get this up out of the way a little bit. Is that going to work for us this way, or is that not going to work? Maybe that's not going to work. Okay. Let's go back to where we were at. Put this back on. Okay. Now we can stick this back in here. We want to make sure we get it in the right hole, not the old hole. Yeah, don't get it in the old hole. Never a good thing. We want this down into that channel. I think we have it in there. And we want to bend this back into our hole. So we want to undo the bending that we did earlier and get this back in. Oh, hey, look at that. Look at that. Oh, but it only goes to half full. That's the weirdest bloody thing. But at least empty means empty now, so that's something. Makes me think the thing's missing a half twist, eh? It's kind of weird. Why don't you go all the way, man? I don't know. I think we're going to try putting, well, if we put another twist in this, what's that going to do? Well, actually, that does increase it. Huh, but you know what? That's going to be hard to do while it's in here. Seems a little strange. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we're at empty and half full as opposed to half full and full. So I guess that's better. At least it shows empty now. It's kind of funny how it changes, eh? Depending on where you put it. Empty is really empty. Well, I don't know. I think we're gonna call that good. At least we know when we're empty, and I guess that's really the key thing. So I think we'll leave that. If I want to tweak it a little bit more, I mean, I guess we can. But I mean, I think for the most part, I think that's good. So, okay, we're gonna call that one good. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, now that we've got the most important part done, the fuel filler cap fixed, sort of, let's move on to other things that are maybe a little bit more actually important. So I think what we're going to do next is take a little bit of a look at the fuel system and the carburetor. So we're going to start first with the fuel system. So what I want to do is I want to actually get back here to the fuel shut off, okay, which I know at the moment you can't see, but we're going to take this cover off and it's right here, and we're going to check that out for a couple of things. One, we want to make sure that there is no junk in the in the float bowl, okay, or in the float bowl there for the fuel shut off of the petcock. But we also want to make sure that it works. It actually does shut off the fuel. That's quite critical because with these small engines, ideally what you want to do is run them out of fuel. Is turn the petcock off, run them right out of fuel, and that way the carb stays good. So you really want that petcock to be working, and obviously for safety reasons and other reasons you want it to work as well. So okay, so that's got the front bit off. There was just, if you saw what I was doing, four screws. Okay, not tough. You have to open this one flap to get at those two screws down the bottom, but that's it. Now, to make a little bit of room here, as you can see, we've got these wires here. So we're just gonna unclip these. Now these are, I'm not sure we'll need to undo both or just the one, but there's one. Does that get us? You know what, I think we're going to do both just because I've got it a bit of a funky angle here so I can do the filming, so it'll probably be a little bit easier for me if I get this one off too. Mind you, it seems on there really good. Okay, let's just work around it. That's fine. We just twirl that out of the way. That's what we'll do. So we want to make sure that this petcock is working, so I want to grab a little pair of needle nose pliers here. Okay, and I think what we're going to do, I think the easiest way to test that, is to take the fuel line off. Okay, so this is the fuel line here that's coming from the gas tank, right? Coming gas tank down into the petcock. This would be the off position because it's across the line, right? Right down would be in line, and therefore that would be on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off, and then we're going to turn the petcock and see if the petcock leaks or doesn't leak. So we'll take this fuel line off. I think what I'll do is I'll just put this pie plate underneath so we catch any fuel that might still be in the line. Okay, and a little bit of this dripping there is from the carburetor side, so that's what we're seeing here is what we want to see, okay, because we're not seeing any fuel dripping out of here, which is great. So now let's test the on position, make sure that it works when we turn it on, and it does. Okay, great, and that's dripping into our pie plate. Okay, great, perfect. So that's all good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to clean this sediment bowl. Did I see? I think I said something different before. This is our sediment bowl. So, you know, I don't bet you this has never been off before. So we want to get this off, and inevitably there will be some sort of gunk in there, probably. And we want to get that off. So let me grab a pair of pliers here. Yeah, what do you think? I think that should do the job, eh? It's a little bit overkill, but that's okay. We'll just be gentle. Just be gentle with it so we can hold the body of it. Oh yeah, got our loose set up, not too bad. Let's get the sediment bowl off of here. Alrighty, and there's the fuel in there, and yeah, it looks a little bit gunky. Looks like there's a little bit of water in there as well. You can kind of see, oh yeah, there's definitely, I'm not sure you guys be able to see this or not, but yeah, there's a lot of crap in there. Do you see that? That is, you know, this thing's probably like 1980s model, so what is that, you know, 43 years of sediment? I guess when you put it in those contexts, it's really not too bad, but Yeah, there's some junk in there. So I am going to turn the camera off. I'm gonna go clean this out. There's no, I've got to get a screwdriver in there and get that cleaned out of there, whatnot. So I'm gonna go do that, and we'll be right back. Actually, guys, I think I can get most of it with some paper towel here. So let's just try this and see what we get off it. And yeah, you can see that bit of garbage there. What's going on? So yeah, just cleaning her up. Grab some of this loose gas to help us out a little bit. And yeah, there was definitely some water in this tank. I mean, I can tell just looking at the fuel that came out of that sediment bowl. I wonder if that's why the guy thought it didn't run. How much you want to bet that's what it was, eh? Some bad fuel. Probably. Okay, so we've got that sediment bowl clean now, so just gonna give this a little bit of a wipe too. It's probably fine, but what we're gonna do, give this a little clean out. We'll just turn her on with this, with the sediment bowl off, let it drip right out of there. Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. Just gonna clean up our cap here a little bit, or our metal, what would you call it? Metal screw cap, right? So put our sediment bowl back in there, okay, and we're gonna put her back on. So let's just screw that back on there. Just tighten her back up. Not getting too carried away, just getting her tight. Put our fuel line back on, that's probably important. Okay, we've got that on there. Just twirl that out of the way so we don't whack in ourselves or anybody else with it. And yeah, and let's just turn this on, make sure we don't have any leaks. Okay, so we're going to turn the fuel on, filling the sediment bowl up, and no leaks. Okay, good. I'm going to turn that back off now. Now, what we want to do next is I want to actually, although we actually saw this thing run, right? We saw it run, which really surprised me. I'm sure it surprised you too. But that said, though, I think we want to take the carburetor off. But before we do that, right, and clean it up, right, because we're into this thing, let's try to do as good a job as we can do. But before we do that, let's give this a little bit of a cleanup in here. So I'm going to grab a little bit of WD-40. WD-40 is really great stuff because it doesn't hurt anything so much, and yet it will really remove all of the crap and the crud. So we're just going to give this thing a bit of a spray, give the engine a bit of a spray. I'm going to kind of avoid the workings of the generator here. I'm just going to leave that alone. It doesn't look too dirty anyways, but we're just going to get what we can get here. And also, if you'll notice, can you guys see the inside of this? No, I guess you can't see the inside of this cover. Let me twirl this a little bit. Oh yeah, you can a little bit. So this is our cover here, but this is the inside of it, okay? So we're going to get a little bit of that too. We're not going to really get the wires or anything. We're just going to kind of get, get out of this thing what we can, and then we're just going to give everything a really good wipe down so that we can try to get this much dirt out of this as possible. At the end of the day, keeping stuff clean a little bit, is a good thing. We're going to get the top side of the outside of this cover too, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be very difficult to get later, so maybe not. But we're going to get her now anyway, since we're looking at it. Okay, what do you guys think? I think that looks better, eh? So I think that's, yeah, we're going to continue the cleaning process as we go, but I think that's a good step, good first step here. So let's get this tray out of the way. Clean this foot up a bit. Okay, cool. Okay, now let's put our cover back on. Oh, you know what I forgot? You guys are probably yelling at the screen. You know what I forgot? I forgot to plug the thing back in. So I think we better do that. Okay. That might be a really good idea, eh? Yeah, okay, there we go. And that connector's still good. Yeah, golden. Awesome. Okay guys, we've got that control panel plugged back in. You can see both the plugs are plugged back in, so we're good to go. So we can now put the control panel back on. So let's do that now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to clean this bottom cover here as well. I'm going to tip you down a little bit so you can see it a bit better. But yeah, it's pretty dirty, so we're just going to give her a go here. Let's take this off. There's a magnet there. We found a magnet. Why is that, I wonder? No idea. Sure. That has... Oh, that might be... Actually, you know what? That's probably what keeps it closed, is that magnet. Interesting. There's only one on one side. Maybe the other side's missing, eh? It's interesting. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. You see, you get this metal tab here. Metal tab here. I guess that's just a magnet that sits there. It's not even glued on or anything. Weird. Okay, well, something different. Okay. Oh, and I see where that magnet's supposed to go now. Okay. You guys might already notice because you can kind of see it on the screen here, but okay, there is a magnet here that's being held in by the two jaws, and then yeah, and that one that fell out was actually sitting up top here. So this needs to go back into this little holder here and then get crimped in. Maybe we can just do it with a pair of pliers. I need something a little more forceful than that. Let's try the channel locks and see if we can kind of crimp that in there a bit. That in there now? Yeah, we crimped that in there. Okay, let's see. Yeah, there we go. So that's actually what holds that up there, is that it's just magnets. So you know what, since we're doing a little bit of cleaning, and we haven't done the carburetor yet, but since we're doing the cleaning and we're right at the front here, let's clean this panel up a little bit, eh? It's pretty disgusting. For small equipment like this, you wouldn't want to use a pressure washer on this thing, right? Or water, or I don't know what else. What else would be extreme? Sandblasting. I mean, all of that would be a little crazy, right? Would not be, especially, I think the mistake some people make is literally a pressure washer or a hose. Bad idea. WD-40 does an amazing job, and it doesn't really leave things greasy, right? It really doesn't. So once it's wiped off, it's quite good, and so I think it's really a great way to go. With small equipment, you're not hurting anything, because at the end of the day, looks are secondary to function, right? We want this thing to just work, so that's the main deal. Okay, cool. All right, well, I think that was already looking quite a bit better. Let's get a little bit of this crap out of here. Let's see what we can do with the carburetor. Okay. You guys can see that pretty good? I think so. Okay. Tip you up just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I think that's not too bad, eh? So, yeah, so this is where the carburetor is. There should be an air filter clean cover here, but there's not. This is just a cover to keep the, I would imagine the foam element would go on top of this. And the purpose of this is just to keep the foam element from getting sucked into the carburetor. So it holds that foam element there, and then there would be a cover that goes over top of it. Unfortunately, the cover is missing. So we'll need to source one of those ideally, because we can run it a bit in a nice clean environment without too many worries, but we ideally want an air cleaner on this. Okay, so we're just going to start taking some of these Phillips head screws out. Now I say Phillips head, but they're not actually, right? This is this unit's made in Japan. And for anything made in Japan, motorcycles, small equipment, whatever, if you see a Phillips head screw, it is actually Japanese industrial standard, otherwise known as JIS. Okay, and you need to use, ideally, oh wow, that one's on there. Ideally, a JIS screwdriver for getting them out. And in fact, ones like this, if I wasn't using a JIS screwdriver on one that was that tight, I probably would have just stripped it out. Okay, so they're not cheap, these screwdrivers. The one I'm using right now is made by Vessel, and it's got an interchangeable heads. They're not cheap, but you know what? Save you endless hours of pain and frustration. So highly recommend doing that. So we're just going to get this off of there. This is just our air breather hose. We can get that out of the way. And now we can see our carburetor. So we'll file that gasket away. Okay, now we just need to take that off of there, and then we're going to give it a clean. Okay guys, I'm having another look at this, and you know what? To get this carburetor right off, it looks like we have to take the gas tank off and possibly the muffler off as well. We know that the engine is running and running pretty well, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take a cheating approach on this one and just take the take the float bowl off and take a look inside there and clean up whatever crud is in it. We know, because it's running, we know the jets and everything else are functionally right, and then I think what we'll do is we'll just cosmetically clean the exterior of it. I think that's good enough for this machine. Now look, if it wasn't running, we would have no choice. We'd have to take off what we need to take off to actually get at the carburetor. But in this case, it's running, so we just want to make sure that we get sediment out of this out of the out of the float bowl, so that we don't clog a jet or anything else. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's take the float bowl off here. That's just a 10 millimeter nut on the bottom of this. Okay, so take that out. We're going to have a little bit of gas here. I should maybe grab that pie plate, eh? Just grab the pie plate. Try to catch it. We can catch it. Not the end of the world. Oh yeah, well maybe it is the end of the world. There's a lot there. So okay. Fortunately, she's hitting there, eh? It's a tad unfortunate. Okay, a little bit of unfortunate design going on here, which is unusual for Japanese stuff, but to get the float bowl off, we actually need to take this governor rod off here. The governor rod actually, I guess, is right here, but this is the rod for the governor that kind of adjusts it. So we need to actually back that off. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to, we know it's running good, so we're going to just count the turns here on our screwdriver to go and see what so we can get them basically back in the same spot where it was. So 1 full turn, 2 full turns, 8. Okay, so we know we need to put that back 8 full turns. Okay, we're going to carefully put that spring and screw away. We're going to take this out, take our spring off. Okay, there we go. And you know what? It's a really good thing we did that. It's a really good thing we did that. I don't know if you can see that crop in there. Here, maybe you can see it better when I poured it to here. See that? The other thing to note here is if we look at the fuel, right? This is all what's came out of that float bowl. Do you see all of the bubbles? The camera's picking that up. See all the bubbles? That's water. Okay, there's water, possibly oil, but bottom line, this is not clean fuel. So this is a really good. It's a really good thing we're doing this. Now that we've poured the fuel out, and again, if we look in the float bowl here, you can see that. Let me grab a flashlight so I can make that a little more obvious for you. Do you see that? Look at the crop in there, eh? So this all needs to be cleaned out. The other thing that this tells me, I think what we're going to do is, yeah, we probably should have done this already, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to open up that front panel again, and we're actually going to drain all the fuel out of the tank as well before we, I know we'll put new fuel in this thing. That's the thing to do. So glad we're doing this. A little bit unfortunate design here. This is this sort of issue of getting at simple stuff like a float bowl. With especially with modern Japanese equipment, their design is incredible. It's a very unusual circumstance to actually, butt up against something where you can't do it. But that's okay. Minor issue for us to pay to kind of get this thing working, right? Okay, guys. So we've cleaned up the float bowl. She's all nice and clean now, and we're gonna stick her back on. So let's just do that. We want to do that before we do too much else because we don't want there to be any issues with this part of the equation. So just making sure the float's all in good shape, that we've got everything centered. And yeah, let's put this back on. Okay, good. So now that we've got that on, now what we want to do, because we've got all of this exposed, obviously we've got to put our governor spring back on and our governor adjuster back on, and we will do that. But before we get to any of that, I want to clean all of this dirt and crap up off of this area. So we're going to do that with a couple of different things. Again, as you probably have already guessed, WD-40. We're also going to use a little carb cleaner here too. So where we are on the carb itself, we're going to probably do that. So we've also got a little toothbrush here. All the tools of the trade, right? So let's get everything smushed around really good before we try to wipe it off. Okay, guys, we've got that area pretty much cleaned up. No, obviously we've got the tank and the muffler and whatnot, but we'll worry about that in a little bit. But for now, I think that looks pretty good. Our carburetor is nicely cleaned. We've cleaned the sediment bowl, the float bowl, so that's all as it should be. So that's excellent. So now what we need to do before we do anything else is put the governor spring back on the governor adjustment mechanism here. And so that's what we're going to do now. Ideally, I may have to go get glasses for this whole operation. We'll try it here first without and see. But yeah, look at that, we got lucky. Okay, great. So we got the spring on there, so that's the first step. And then, if you recall, then oops, spring's in the wrong spot. Little spring goes in between this bracket here and then onto here, and we put on 8 full turns. So I'm just going to get the now it says vessel, so I know that it's, I've got this on my screwdriver, so I know that that's 1. So we're going to do 8. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's approximately where she was. So now we know we've got that back in place. We've got this on and secured, so we're good. So now what we can do is put our what would you call this? Our cover back on. And just looking at this is still a little bit dirty, this cover here. So let's clean that up just a little bit before we throw her on. And our
rebreather hose, or whatever you want to call it, crankcase hose that goes through there like that, and then this gets secured on with our screws. Oh, and you know what else we need to do? There's a little gasket here, so we'll do that as well. I don't really think that's terribly necessary, but it's here. We're going to put her back on, so yeah. So I think we're going to have to kind of do it like this. You know, sometimes working with gloves is a bit of a pain, isn't it? It's hard to sometimes have the dexterity you need to do certain jobs, but unnecessarily evil, I guess. Okay guys, so we got that back on there. What the issue was is I had turned the float bowl so that the drain could be accessed from the front. As it turns out, it's supposed to be accessed from the, well, depends on what you think is the front, from the side of the carburetor in this way. And so I had it turned the wrong way, and as a consequence, this plate wouldn't go on. So I just redid everything, turned that float bowl the right way, and put this back on. I just didn't bother filming it because it's kind of obvious. So that's basically got that. I think we've got one more screw to put in here. That's basically it. We've got this on here, this plate. So let's get that on here. And then that's back on, and it's all nice and clean and good to go. So quite happy with how all that cleaned up. Now what we're going to do is we are going to clean up the rest of the engine with a little bit of WD-40 here. So get that done, and then as I mentioned, we're going to drain all the gas out of it. But since we're looking at this, why not do it right now, eh? Okay guys, we've got it pretty much done, but you know what we're going to do is we're actually going to drain the fuel out of it. I should have done that earlier, but you know, now that I see how much water was in this fuel, I see how important it is that we get that done. So we're going to actually take this off again, and which is pretty simple, right? And just pull that fuel line, turn the petcock on, and yeah, that should make all the difference. So let's get after it here. Okay. You know what, just before we pour that gas out, I want you to again see how dirty this fuel is. Just ridiculous. So in fact, actually, you know what? Let me dispose of this, and then we'll just see what actually comes out of the tank. See how bad the tank was. So just be half a moment while I get rid of this. Okay, so we now have a relatively clean container. So let's get this underneath here. Okay. We'll pull this fuel line off. There's our fuel line, and we're going to turn the petcock on and just drain whatever's in that tank out. Okay, here we go. There she goes. So you want all of it out of there. So we'll kind of squish her around when she starts going low. So far it doesn't look too bad, eh? But I mean, there's no point in having old fuel in it. Where's that thing actually grabbing fuel from? It's grabbing it from there. I'm probably not doing any favors tipping it. The hose is pretty much 1/3 of the tank over and in the center, so maybe have a little dip there. We'll see. We'll just let it do its thing. Let nature take its course here, and just drain all of it out. And you know what? I'm already starting to see more gunk coming into our sediment bowl here too. We probably should have done this first, eh? But this is that's okay. Live and learn. We'll take that sediment bowl off again when this is finished draining, to just get whatever is in it out, because I can see some chunkies. You're not going to see it on the camera, but I can see some chunkies floating around in there already. We know we cleaned it up before, but makes sense, right? Okay guys, we've drained all the fuel, cleaned the sediment bowl. put this all back together again with the fuel shut off. So we're all ready for, and actually cleaned up the gas tank as well. And there was a huge amount of water in it. All that water showed up the bottom of the tank. Yeah, got all of that out. And what I actually did, it's because it was just, the drain is actually above, I would say above the bottom of the tank, inside the tank, by maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So what I did is there's a couple ways you can deal with that. Methyl hydrate does mix with water, so you can get away with it that way. In fact, doing it that way, you don't absolutely even have to change out the fuel. But I don't have any methyl hydrate to mix with that little bit of water residue that was in the bottom of the tank. So I got a highly absorbent rag, and I just put it on the end of a grabber tool, a flexible grabber tool, and I moved it all around inside there, just soaked it all up. So that's going to be awesome. It'll be good enough. We'll probably leave it overnight with the cap off, just to let nature take its course and dry out whatever else is left in there. But I don't, there's, visually there's nothing left in there at this point, so it's all good. So now really the last thing to do is to change the oil. Now this can be done with the cover on, but since I have the cover off anyways to deal with this, it's just way easier to get at it. So yeah, so I think we're going to give this a go here. So I've got this container. I guess you guys can't quite see that, but I've got a container lower down here to catch the oil. Wow, that thing is on there, man. That is on there. Holy smokes. I'm going to have to get off my chair to get that one going. Holy smokes, somebody put that one on tight. Okay, so let me just reposition this so you can see the whole action here. Okay, should give you a little bit of a view of what we're doing here. So let's hope that we catch it. That's the hope, that's the dream. I'll move this out a little bit more. Let's try to avoid the bench. Here we go. Yeah, nice. Nice. Yeah, based on that oil doesn't look too bad, but it definitely needs changing. And the fact that there was water in the gas, I mean, there may be no relationship, but a lot of that can be from condensation or just sitting as well. So it's really good that we get this old oil out of here. To help this drain, we'll just loosen that off, let the air in there as well. And yeah, we'll just let her go. So I think now is a good time to go and have a well-deserved pop or a beer or your beverage of choice. So I'm going to go do that, let this thing really drain, and yeah, then we'll come back at it and fill her up. Okay guys, our oil is finally finished draining, so now we're going to put the plug back in. And I'll just give her a little bit of clean here, and then we'll go and we'll top her up. Now, this engine should ideally take SAE 30 oil, okay, SAE 30. I don't have any SAE 30, and I'm not going to go buy any because I've got a lot of 1030 oil, so I'm going to throw 1030 in it. I have no idea how much the thing takes, so we're just going to go cautiously and put some in a little bit, dribs and drabs at a time, and then chuck it. So that's going to be the plan. So let's throw some in here. What do you figure? It probably takes at least, what do you figure, a cup? I don't know how much a cup is. I'm sure that's not enough, but let's see what we got there. We'll check it. I did try looking up to see how much this thing takes and then measure it, but you know what? I couldn't find information right at hand, so we're just going to kind of do the old check. Yeah. We're not even at showing yet, so we're going to put that much in again, I think. Or thereabouts. I'm just going to use the force on this one. I think that's the best way. Do another check. You are supposed to check with these things screwed in. I know a lot of guys don't. Oh, you know what? I think she's already full. Let's check that out again here. Yeah, you know what? I think I might have actually overfilled it a little bit. Gee whiz. Okay, well, hey, no big deal. Let's just drain a little bit out. I don't get too carried away. Just a little bit. It's unusual that I end up doing this part of it where I have to actually take some out. That's a little unusual for me. See what that does for us. That's no go here, but I don't want to overfill it, you know. I mean, the thing runs so good, we don't want to immediately ruin it, so we'll ruin it later, but not right now, not immediately. We'll use it for a bit first. Yeah, that is still full, so a little more. Call that good. Okay. Ah, perfect. That's what we wanted. Okay, great. So here, now I'll see if I can show you. See if I can show you. So you know I'm not making it up. I don't know if it'll show up. This is brand new oil. It's really hard to see, but you know it's an HD camera, so you never know. But oh, where am I here? Somewhere there. Do you see that? So it's right about there. So that's perfect. So. Okay, good. Happy with that. So we're just going to snug all this back down. We'll put this cover back on. I think I've already shown that to you twice. I'm not going to bother showing that to you again. We'll throw some gas in it, and then we'll see if it generates power. That's probably a really good idea. Yeah, we'll see if it's see what it does. Okay, cool. It's going to take me a little while to do that, but I'll probably see you in about half a second here. Okay, guys. Well, I think the time has come where we're going to go and give the thing a go. We've changed the oil. We've cleaned it up significantly. We've cleaned both the sediment bowl for the fuel system, as well as the float bowl for the carburetor, both of which are really dirty. And we found a ton of of contaminated fuel, contaminated with water. So we got all of that out of the tank. We drained the tank. We cleaned the tank. So I think we're now at the stage where we're good to go. I've put fresh gasoline in it using Chevron 94, which is what I use for all my small equipment. May put some fuel stabilizer in it if we store it over the winter, what have you. But 94 here in Canada does not have any ethanol in it. It's the only fuel you can buy that doesn't have ethanol that I know of. Other than those little cans, that you can buy for a lot of money, which I don't do. So I think we're ready to go here. So let's turn the fuel on. Step one, let's turn that petcock on. Okay. So we got fuel. Fuel is on. Now we're going to turn the choke on. So we got the choke on, and we're going to give her a few pulls. Now, this thing actually, interestingly, pulls fuel up to the carburetor. So I'm pretty sure it's going to take a couple of pulls at least, but let's go see what happens. I'm pulling her left-handed here, so hopefully I can do it this way. I'm doing that so you guys can see what's going on. Oh, deep pull. Here we have it. There we have it. She's working good. So let's try the charging stuff. Come away. Those are working. Still a wide here. See what sort of power she's putting out. Good. 118.3. You see that?
Let's try that first.
About 56 hertz. So I think we might be able to improve that a little bit. We'll see if we can turn it up a bit and get those hertz to change a little bit. Hey, not too shabby. So she's putting out power. She's putting out about 118 volts at 56 hertz. Now, ideally, we want 60 hertz. So we'll see if we can adjust a little bit to make that better. But gee whiz, this is really great. The thing, 2 pulls. I'm surprised, man. That's amazing. So yeah, she's off to the races. And for running, essentially, the hertz isn't great, but for running basic electronics like lights, heaters, that sort of thing doesn't matter too much. You got to be careful with that as you move up the spectrum of technology. But for basic things, it's just fine. That said, we'll see if we can tweak that a little bit. I'm not sure if we change the governor speed, if that'll just change the voltage, or if that'll change the hertz too. If somebody knows, maybe leave a comment. I would love to know. I'm going to take a little bit of a look at that myself and see if I can figure that out. Okay, guys, so we're going to actually try to adjust the machine so it actually puts out closer to 60 hertz. Right now it's putting out 56 and change, almost 57 hertz. Not really quite good enough. I mean, in an ideal world, it would be putting out 60. So we're going to see if we can adjust it and improve that. So we're going to give that a go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the kilowatt meter up so that hopefully you can actually view this as I'm adjusting it. So that's going to be the hope. We'll see what happens. So let's give her a pull and see what happens. Plus 56.4. 56.7, 57, 57.2, 57.9, 58.2, 58.3, 58.1, 59.3, 59.4, 59.8, 60. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. What do you guys think? That's not too bad. Alrighty, so I hope the camera picked that up, but we were able to adjust it. We were able to adjust it to the 60 hertz that we needed. So that is awesome. So this thing is putting out 60 hertz. Yeah, I'm quite happy. So anyways, guys, thanks again for watching. If you watched this far, please do like and subscribe. And yeah, another one fixed. So not too sure what we're going to do with it now that we got it fixed. But anyways, watch for the next one. Bye for now, guys.